Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode. So where we left off, we had completed creating this form, and it is working well, except that when I click on cancel or create, nothing is getting done. Let me first check that out. So on cancel, I think I've done this. So what I've changed now is just to format the code so that the code doesn't extend all the way to the end, especially the only thing now extending is the classes, because it was training for you guys for me to keep moving like this. Okay, so I think I completed this probably in the previous video, but so I have to bind this form right here, saying form group is equal to create form. I think I'd already created this, so I mean now let me close that. So now the form knows about this. I mean the knows about the form. So the other thing is when I click cancel, I want to use router link and navigate back to my jobs, right? Okay, so this should work now. And this is not working yet. Let's see, button, submit. Well, if this is valid, so let me first remove this check, because I think the previous video we hadn't used validators, so just a small explanation about them. So you're trying to validate forms. If definitely you've used forms before, you've seen that sometimes when you don't fill a form or you try to submit and there's an error, it will complain and force you to do that before it gets submitted. So I just wanted to start afresh with that. But now that I've removed the capability to check the validation, now it's working fine. But let's go back and make sure that it doesn't accept to get submitted if the validation isn't true, which is what I've done here. But also, right now, the user wouldn't know where their form is not getting submitted, right? So Reactive Forms has error handling logic, and let's do that now. So what we want is if somebody doesn't fill this, if someone doesn't fill the position or any field and they click out of it or they try to submit, it should tell them which fields have not been filled or what errors on each fields. We're just going to check to ensure that the fields have values for now. And so to do that, let's first see how you do the forms. So I'll come back here and I'll just say that on submit console.log. So we want to console the form object and just see how that looks like. Because so we're saying that if the form gets submitted, we want to log the object because we want to see something. So I'll click on inspect and go to the console. And so if I click on the form right here, we're going to see that the form group object gets printed to the console, and let's see what values are there. So first and foremost, you can see the controls for these values. You can see another object, another value or key called pristine, and it is true. You can see status is invalid because this form is invalid, right? It is not filled yet. It said here that these fields are required, but they are not there, so it is invalid. And the other things that we look at, you see the values. The fields are empty right here. And if you come down and look at some other key and value pairs in this object, you'll see that dirty is false. Invalid is true, it is invalid. We've submitted it when it didn't have values. Untouched is true. So, and you can see touched is false right here. So this is the opposite of that. And valid, of course, is false because it has failed. It is not valid. We haven't failed in the values. So now that we've seen that object, I want you to see something. So pristine means how clean the form is. So it means you've not typed anything in this form. And that is similar to dirty. So dirty means if you click in and click out, you see like this in a field and click out, you have made it dirty, right? And pristine is if you type in anything, the form is no longer pristine. So the field is no longer pristine. So let's test those out. So let me click in, and we are going to print another object here, and you're going to see the difference with these values. Okay, so let's see. So now you can see that pristine is true. We haven't typed anything as much as we clicked in and clicked out, but touched is true because we've touched, and here touched was false, right? Dirty is false, and here dirty is false, so we haven't typed anything, so the form is still clean, but it is touched, right? So we are going to type in stuff. And let's see another object of this form and see what will have changed. Okay, so if I click that and look at these values, so pristine, we have typed something in the form, so it's no longer pristine, and we've touched, which is true, and the values are here, and now it is dirty, right? So dirty is true. Invalid, where is valid? Now it is valid because we filled in all the forms, and this is the opposite of that. So invalid would be, here would be false, right? And untouched would be false because we've touched it, and valid should be true. So we are going to use touched to we are going to use some of these values like touched and valid, error, and stuff like that to show that some values need to be filled. So let's get back to the code, and we'll go into each of these fields. Now the job position, we are just going to add a div, and so we want this div to show. Use the ngIf, right? ngIf directive, and we say if create form dot get, and the value we are getting is the company. Oh, actually, and let's start from the bottom, from the top, from this note here. So inside this div, right? And the value we want is job title. Take note that you don't use double quotes, you use single quotes. Okay, so we are saying that this dot, so you can see dirty, untouched, so we are going to use touched, right? And so if you've touched, if you've clicked into the form but clicked out without filling any values, but let's also check if it is valid, right? Create form dot get. We are still getting job title, and I'm using the question mark because when we are creating the form object here, we say that it can be null, so we have to use that. So if it is invalid, if it is touched and invalid, so means of course it is touched. You've typed in, you've touched it, but you've not filled in anything, so it is invalid, right? And so if it is invalid, but then we also want to check the other required, the other is for required, right? So if required is, I mean, this validation is false. Okay, so that's what we are going to also check. And let's put that in a div, say in ngIf create form dot get, and looking for the job title, and we're looking at the errors array, and for this array we are going to look for the required error, because there's going to be an array of errors, and so we are checking if the required error is there. So in that case, we are going to tell the user that something is wrong with this field, and specifically that it has to be filled. Okay, let's say title cannot be empty. Let's say job title field cannot be empty. Okay, so let's test that out and see how that looks like. So if we touch the form, we don't fill anything and we jump out, it is going to warn us. However, we want to make it stand out and show that it is an error, and we are going to do that in, we are going to create a class for this div. So we want the text to be italic and we want to be extra small, right? And we want it to be red. So maybe red 400. Okay, so let's see how that looks like. Okay, so you can see, and if they add any value in and move out, it doesn't complain. But if they don't and go to the next field, it has to complain. Just refresh it. So they come, they don't fill anything in, it has to, but they go to the next field, it has to complain that you need to fill this field. So this is the same logic. We are going to just copy and paste it for the other fields and change the values. So we're still going to copy it still here for the description. And here is description. And then let's change this. Say description cannot be empty. This is company. Company field cannot be empty. Okay, so that should solve everything. Now, so let's try it out. Make it, I touch it, I leave it. Same thing here. Company field. Oh, yeah, this should be required. Because yeah, checking the required error. What will be copy. Yes. Okay, that should work now. We touch this, I don't feel it. Cool. So that is working fine. So, and now we should then be able to fill the form. Okay, we can fill the form. That's perfect. But I want to explore another. So if it is like this, you have not touched it, and you try to submit, it doesn't show anything, but it should show. It should show that this field is required, this field is required, this, because if, for example, if this was a form of maybe 10 or 20 fields, like those forms, sometimes when you're filling in these forms, talking from the perspective of a user, you usually forget some fields, right? And so sometimes when you click on submit, it should like show what fields are missing, because you see, if I fill in some fields right here, it's not submitting and it's not telling me this is missing. So let's add that, right? And we are going to add that from here. So I'm going to say if this .create form is valid, do that. Else, else we are going to use a method on the form called mark all as touched. And so what does that do? It says that if the form is not valid, but you try to submit, it should show that all these values have been touched, and if there's any that wasn't filled, it will show. So if we go back and fill this, we haven't touched it. So initially it couldn't tell us, but now you can see it tells me this field is required. If I fill this and I fill this and I don't touch this, so I try to submit, it shows me. So that's it. We are done with creating a form that is working fine, and adding, we are done with adding a new job. So we'll implement the actual functionality of a job, and then the update, the database is updated when we're working with a local file. But in maybe the following video, we will look at adding getting this data from a database, and so that then we should be able to have the functionality to create jobs, populate them here for a particular user, and then those jobs are viewed on the home page, right? So that part is done. So the next part that I want to add is this: when the user wants to edit a job, right? They have posted their job, but they realize, oh, I just need to change something. So let's implement that. For now, there's even no component. So to do that, we are going to create a component called edit job, right? So we come back to our pages and right click, generate component, and let's call it edit job, right? Okay, so, and you know the drill. If you add it like this, you have to go back until your app is module about it. So come here, say edit job component. IntelliSense already senses it and imports it. Okay, great. So how do we go to it? Then we go to the routing and add it. Okay, so it will be edit job, but we have to add the ID because we are going to be going to a particular job, right? A particular job is ID. So we add that, and we also change the component, the job component. Perfect. So how do we navigate there? I mean, the route is working now, but the button is working now. So if we go to my jobs, because I want to look at this page and look at, oh, actually this component is using the job component that we created right here. And so with, oh, okay, I'd already I think tried to create that route prior to this video. So that is already created, and you can see that we navigate to the route with a job ID. So Perfect. Now we need to create component, and so this component, because it's going to be exactly the same as the create component, but because it is editing, we want it to have the values that we are trying to edit, right? So let's go back. I'll close that. Great job is done, and so let's go to edit job. Right, so right here. So the first thing we need to do is to get a particular job that we are trying to edit. And so for that, I'm going to create a job as an observable of type job, all undefined. All the object itself will be undefined. Okay, so here you need to import the job interface. Okay, and now we are going to go to the constructor, and we are going to inject a few things to help us navigate to that particular job. So the first one is going to be the alternative route, project routes. Related route. Then the other one is going to be the service to get the particular job, because remember we are going from here, so we need to get this particular job when we go to this URL. So what did we call our service? Job service, which is right here. Okay, so we're going to do the get job by ID. I've used it's an observable. I've defined the job as an observable because right here this method gets it as an observable. So now we go to ng on it, and we get the job ID. We are going to use the activated routes. So routes, it's dot routes dot map get. So we are getting the ID from the URL, and now we are going to get the job from the service. Service dot get job by ID. But before we do that, we need to check that the job ID actually exists, right? Okay, so if the job ID exists, then let's get that particular job. So get job by ID, and so get the job ID. Okay, so right now we have our job, and we are able to get its content in our our template, because right now if I do job dot title, I can't, because it's an observable. So if it's an observable, you have to use the async pipe. That would be something like this: ng if job, then use pipe. So pipe is also another functionality in Angular. We'll probably work with it in a different video, and you'll get to see how it works. So sync as job. So now it becomes a variable or an object, because before it was an observable. So job dot title. So okay, so I see what is happening here. I forgot to assign the value that returns from this to our defined job object. Okay, so yeah, now we are getting the job, and now that we have the job, we are good. But now that we are going to work with this form, and yet again we don't want to go into again creating the form again. So every time you have a component that you're using, it's very important to isolate it and create its component alone. So I'm going to go to our components here, and I'm going to create a job form. So this job form will be used for creating. It will be used for editing, and anything else that we might want to do with the data or the job object. So but mostly to be editing and creating, right? So let's close up the pages. Let's come to the components, and we are going to create a new component. Let's call it job form. And of course, we have to add it to tell our application about it. Okay, gets imported. Then let's close that. And okay, so our job form, what we are going to do, we are going to go to the create form right here, copy that form, and see this create job right here. So we're just going to get the entire form right here. Okay. And we are going to come here and just paste it there. So just the form alone, right? Okay, so of course it doesn't know about this. So let's go to the TypeScript and create a form for it. So let's start right here. So I'm going to do basically the same thing. Yeah, but let's call this job form. and it is an instance from a group. Okay, then of course we are working with forms, so we are going to inject the form builder. Okay. And so now we are going to come to ng on it and define values for this form, this jump form. We got this .fp.group. Okay, then we create an object. So the first value that we need is going to be what? The title. So actually I can just go first close that and close it. Can go to create form and just get all these values. Close that and add them here. We need to also import validators. The arrow is gone. Okay, so we can go back to the template and take it out what form we delete, what form we are talking about. So we're talking about, I think we just use this is replace. Okay. And replace all. Is it just looking for done? And now we need to also define the onSubmit method. So onSubmit. Let's override. I could just go back right here and just copy the same method. Okay, so this is the form. We need to also inject the router. So we have that complete, and now if I go back to this create page, I'm going to replace the whole thing with just this this data with this component that we've created here. So if I go back to this, now we are going to come to the create page and add our form, which is right here. Okay, and so that should insert, but I think we forgot to remove this key tag. Okay, so our form works fine, and in the create, we no longer need to define all these things, right? Let me just get rid of this, get rid of this, and even this is not necessary. This is not necessary. Okay, so now you can see that our code looks much cleaner, right? Could even get rid of this. I mean, every time you're not using something, there's no need to add it in there, right? We don't need this for now. Okay, so we are good now. So we are, this is a create form and it is working fine. Now that the create form is done, let's close out of that. And we are going to go to the edit form page, edit job form page, which is this. We are getting the job, and then we are going to come here. And I think I just need to change this heading, but it's going to be the same structure. So I will just go to create page and just copy this. It's basically the same thing. We are using the same component, but I'm going to change this to sorry, update job. Okay. And so if we go to edit, we should see this. But now we have, I mean, one of the things that we have to work on is one is the button should be different for each page, because here we are updating, so it should say update job, and here when we are creating, it should say create job or just create. So to do that, let's go back let's just close out of this, and let's go back to the job form. Now we need to do what is called actually let me get rid of that. That was not necessary. We need to add decorators that are going to help us with data binding. We already did a bit of data binding in the previous component where we are creating just a job form and using it for this page and also this page. So we already did that. But now you can see we also have to do it here and change this and also change this. So to do that, you know that we use the input and output decorator. the input decorator um, to get data from a parent component, a child component, and the output is the vice versa. So here we're going to say input, and it should get imported here. So input, we're going to say button text, and it's a string, which is got to just kind of leave it as an empty string, and in our edit job, we are going to add it. So I'm going to say button text. So this one we want it to be actually before that you can see nothing changes. Instead, what we want is to go to this button and instead of hard coding the value, we're going to use interpolation so that we want it to have that text. So if we do that now, you can see because there's nothing there, it's empty, and even it's the same thing here. Let's create now it's empty. But let's go to edit first, edit page, and we are going to add it to the button text. This is update job. Update job. Oh, it doesn't have to be in square brackets. Button text. Update job because it's a string. It's not like a variable. It's like yeah, because it's just a string. So that should change. But now we go back to create. That doesn't exist. So we have to go to also the create page right here. And add it in. And that is create job. So that works fine. Right. Now, the other thing that we want to do is if we are going to edit this particular job, when we click on edit, we want the form to have those values already pre-filled, right? So we want it, the field to have so that, I mean, if someone has already typed software engineer, here they can just change the value, right? So we want it to be auto-populated with those values. So to do that, let's go back to our job form right here. So what we are going to do is we are going to create another binding value. This is also going to be an input. And let's call this job data. And job data is going to be of type job, right? Shall take job all undefined. Okay, so now in this form, what we want to do is, instead of passing instead of passing only the empty, strings, we want to have options to either pass the data if it exists, or if the data doesn't exist, it should just pass an empty string. So in the case of create, it will just be empty because the data will not be existent. All right, so let's do that. So here, I'll say that the initial value of the job data dot title all an empty string in here. This is company all an empty string. This dot data if it exists. Description all an empty string, right? So to navigate to this page from here, we are getting the job, and let's see. So we have in this edit component, which is right here, we are getting the job, right? So because we are getting the job, it should be auto-populated within this these fields. Okay, so let's go back now to this. We defined an input of job data. We need to tell edit job about it. We need to tell the form about it. And so this job data is equal to job. However, job is an observable, and because it is an observable, let's do this. Ng if use ng if directive. Say if the job, and then use a pipe to convert into an async. So as job, and so this will be a job, right? So because we are doing this because the job is unavailable, and so we need to use async to convert it right here, and then now it will make sense because in the form this this is our data and it's not observable, so that should work now, right? Perfect. So if we go back to the data scientist right here, we click on it, it's pre-populated with the data. So now it is for someone to just come in and add whatever it is that they want to add it, and then they will update and will implement that functionality when we start using Firestore. Okay, so yeah, that's all. And yeah, so that's it for this particular video. What we've done here is we've created reusable form component. We've added the logic to handle any errors with the forms, right? So text, and then we've also created a reusable form for both creating and the jobs. So it's the same form, it behaves differently on each component to serve the different functionalities. Okay, so that's it for this video. In the next video, we are going to be implementing Firestore and creating a lot of functionalities. I think that should be interesting for you guys. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this or anything related, just let me know. You can leave the comments in the comment section. And if you like the video, kindly subscribe and leave a like. Thank you so much.